Okay, you're flipping it out. Let me just quickly say.
From Zappa.
Yeah, Deep Purple. Deep Purple did a song about Zappa when Zappa, the concert, the Casino Montreux in Switzerland, burnt down. And so Deep Purple gets involved with Zappa, is Roxy's point. But while Bert was listening to Zappa this week, and you were reading whatever you were reading, Roxy, to come up with about Mozart and that, so what was I doing? I was reading about Michael Weinstein. Michael Weinstein is the co-author of the great Arthur Croker book, Data Trash, came out in 1994, before the Internet became widespread, and they have the theory of the virtual class. And I never knew much about Michael Weinstein, but he just died a few months ago, so it's led me to his widow, and then I'm looking into him. So I'm reading that Michael Weinstein was this guru professor in Chicago who, it was almost like a cult, and he wrote all these books about all kinds of complex things. And I'm reading them, and it's all ionic philosophy. He's totally ionic. And that's where Croker was a student of his in the postgraduate phase. So it turns out the hidden ground to Arthur is Michael Weinstein, who didn't make it to 2016, but his books, maybe at some point I'll read you some quotes. He was talking about, he's a political activist, and he's maybe a Marxist, a socialist or something, but he also recognized that the person privately must develop themselves. They must develop their ownness. They must own themselves. And he has this whole agenda exactly talking about how one is to be intimate without being a victim of it. The idea is that you're not here for your partner's good health. You're here not to make them feel better. He has all this stuff. So I was discovering a guy in the Croker quadrant doing ion, just as Bert was finding LaRouche had ion, and Roxy was finding Sun Ra had ion in him. So this is the wonderful part of Dobbs Town. Every week it's a wonderful experience.
I just read a quote that you listed. I just read a quote that you just listed in Up the Orphan Annie last night with Weinstein about leaving behind the process world of data engineers. That whole from Data Trash, page 139. I read that last night.
Yeah, very good. And I don't know who wrote. Croker and Weinstein, I don't know who wrote more. If they're both 50-50, that book was written by them emailing it back and forth to each other, and each supplementing what the other guy wrote. But so what's happened is I bought a book about Weinstein. It just came out just before he died, a textbook, a university textbook, where his students and fellow professors have decided that Weinstein is a major American philosopher, that he should be recognized. He's well versed in all the, you have to know like a jazz musician, you have to know all the songs and all the ways to play before you can improvise. So he's this pretty genius improviser on the history of philosophy, psychology, and everything. He's encyclopedic. But what he's advocating as a philosopher is ionic, totally ionic. I can read the subtle complexities of what he did. So why am I saying that? So, just to find out that, we find out that Zappa had ionization, that McLuhan had ionization, LaRouche has it, Mae Brussel has it, Dr. Beater had it, and now Croker has it through his colleague Michael Weinstein. Again, I claim to create these people, and then I forget I created them. Then I go and study them and find out, holy shit, they're all saying what Bob's guy said. So I come back to myself and to Ion because I forgot what I read yesterday, which is what I said. That's the way I work, right?
Yeah, it works.
Well, lucky you guys remember what you learn, so you can tell me what you learned, and we move forward. Though you are learning that it all ends up back in Bob's lap, the guy that we kept trying to wake up. We try to get Bob get out of his dream. The dream's his dream. Meanwhile, we're reading about what?
Connect the world.
Say it again. Connects the world.
Connect the world.
We're reading.
Yes.
That's right. Connect the world. So Carol and I are reading about Bob Dylan's first girlfriend, who turns out to be the coolest young woman, Susie Ratola, really a neat woman. And I think that's why Dylan went nuts. He left her. He shouldn't have left her. He shouldn't have gone for Joan Baez. She was the one that could handle it all. Pretty neat. The reason she broke off is that he was trying to treat her as an appendage to him, and she was a bona fide thinker, artist in her own right. She couldn't be an appendage to him. So, and then Joan Baez tried to hijack Dylan to work for her cause. So she was an accomplished artist herself, but she didn't understand to have a give and take with Dylan, so she lost Dylan too. And then Dylan ends up with these, I wouldn't want to say, other people that he ends up divorcing eventually and unsatisfied. But Dylan was a bit of a creep in many ways. Now, what's interesting, Ian told me very early, Carolyn, that Zimmerman, he was giving me some of the oligarchic names, and he said Zimmerman. And I go, Zimmerman? Yes, that's one of the families, Bob. Well, any relation to Mr. and Mrs. Zimmerman, who gave birth to Bob Dylan? Yes. Are you telling me, Ion, are you actually trying to tell me, a very sophisticated person, that Bob Dylan was hoiked on the public on behalf of the oligarchs? Yes. So when you read about Dylan, he's a spoiled kid. He's like a kid coming out of the oligarchy. And then that guy, David McGowan, who tried to expose Zappa and Gale as CIA, a friend of his researched Dylan and found out that Dylan's family was a closet rich family, representing somebody secretive. They worked for Nelson Rockefeller. The grandparents did, something like that. So that was one of the most absurd things I ever heard. It was Ion telling me in the early days that Bob Dylan was propped up by the oligarchy. But when you look at his biography, he goes to New York in early '61, and 7 months later he's got a recording contract, and he's just another vagabond nowhere. Doesn't get any money to buy food. He's just crashing at different people, stealing people's albums, and listening to what he can. And then he all of a sudden gets a recording contract. Who gave it to him? John Hammond. John Hammond was a rich person himself from the oligarchy of Virginia or someplace. So it all comes back to Roxy's grandparents. Those fucking grandparents of Roxy's that tried to give the crown to Maximilian were Cynicus, Roxy. Your own grandparents were Cynicus. Hey, where are you, Roxy?
Yes, but... Yes.
Yes, but what?
But actually, the Emperor Maximilian of Hamburg did a lot of things that were very good for the people. He abolished physical punishment of the people because that was normal to use.
Right. Yeah.
For workers or.
So you think your grandparents were humanists?
They also established
your great-grandparents were humanists.
Education. He didn't. Yeah. There was this division of power with the church. Yeah, he was even more liberal than the Mexican president that was against him, Benito Juárez. And he did much more for the people than Benito Juárez. Actually, all these reforms were made by the Emperor Maximilian, not by Benito Juárez. And yes,
So your parents, your great-grandparents, they were on the right track. They knew who to pick.
Yeah, they were sort of liberals, but they believed it was better to have a monarchy than a republic. That's what they thought.
That's what Edmund Burke, the great philosopher Edmund Burke, said, better to have a monarchy than to have these radical people running around, these liberal people stoned on books. You see, you had some of the smarter oligarchs recognize that these guys were just dupes of the printing press. And they were stoned on books. And they wanted everybody to start reading books. And we saw where that ended up. a damn dark age.
Yes, and for example, my grandfather would say things that are like this type of occult history, things they know. For example, there was a case in the colony about a guard that was in Philippines. Mexico and the Philippines were both colonies of Spain. And the products from China and Asia came from the Philippines to Acapulco, and then from Mexico to Spain. But one day there was a guard, that claimed he fell to sleep, and when he woke up, the governor of Philippines was dead, and he lost conscious. And when he woke up, he was in Mexico City in the downtown square where the cathedral is, and he heard people were speaking Spanish, but he could not understand where he was, and he went to the authorities and said what happened to him. I was in the Philippines, I fell asleep, and then I woke up here, and the governor has been killed. And they didn't believe him, and the guy disappeared. But then after 2 months, the ship from the Philippines arrived to Acapulco with the news that the governor had been killed 2 months ago. And this type of stories, this type of teleportations and weird stuff, he will tell me these things like matter of fact.
Yeah, this is Rocky's education.
He will say,
wow.
The gates of the cathedral, the metal, they were made in Tibet, and they were made with meteorites, and also the bell in the church, and very weird stuff. Yeah. So maybe we should ask Ian about
this. This is your grandfather.
Things, but it's like,
wow.
These people know things you don't know.
And, they say that, let me tell you this, Roxy, Roxy, let me interrupt for a second. The Queen Mother talked to the President Kate, whatever, Princess Kate, whatever, the one that's popular right now, Andrew's wife or something. She got a bit educated by the Queen Mother before the Queen Mother died, and therefore she's cool. Who didn't listen to the Queen Mother? Lady Di. Where is she? She's fucking dead or faked her death or whatever. Who knows what she did. But she did not listen to the Queen Mother. But Roxy's telling us she had a Queen Mother experience. She had a grandfather tried to tell Roxy's mind, hey, things ain't what they look like. For example, this guy was there, and then he was here. And his ship showed up 2 months later proving the guy was telling the truth. So there it is. Roxy had her own special elitist synergist. You had a synergist?
Yes, she did.
St. Martin factional education. So what did you think, Roxy?
And there are many
when you
like
heard that? What, Roxy? Can you remember what your mind thought when you would hear these things? What would you, as a little mind, what would you say
to
yourself?
No, I just think it's possible.
You kept an open mind.
Portals or teleportation or yes, and what Diane is saying confirms all that.
Yeah.
All those.
How old were you, Roxana, when the story? How old were you when you had that story told to you by your grandfather? How old were you?
Maybe 9. But he was always saying this type of crazy things, like 9.
Yeah, it's
you had no reason to doubt
McLuhan's son, Michael.
Very groovy.
Right, but Roxy would go to school, and she was an addict for visual space. She was addicted to books. She demanded homework. She demanded visual space while getting this counter-education, this acoustic, tactile education from her grandfather. She was caught in between.
Yeah, that's why then I was totally dysfunctional, because it's like nothing makes sense. I don't believe them.
she would end up screaming at the sky, why?
But
no, what's funny, Bert?
This is what I like the
most
from these layers of knowledge, that you were always presenting hidden ground, and Ian was explaining going further into these layers, and we were talking about how this is happening now also in the cyberspace. Like, there are these groups that these mysteries in the internet that some hackers found, like a sign, and they're looking for some people, and then they had to solve very, very hard problems, and they will get into the next homework, the next task, and then after a while they say, we found the people we need. And nobody knows, was this a joke or was this for real? It's a new type of finding people for intelligence. And all
Bert, she's talking about a particular case.
In the internet. Yes, and there are things that...
What are you saying, Roxy? What was the last sentence?
That there are even deeper layers of the reality, because now there is also the cyber hidden, the mysteries in the internet that only people that are into programming and hacking and can access to that type of
okay, let me tell you that. Why is conspiracy the most popular meme when the internet started 20 years ago? It's because people using their eyes say, okay, I'm getting information from places I don't know who they are or what they are. So you literally think that anybody can be behind your screen and sending you information, so you're not going to trust that. So you start thinking conspiratorially. McLuhan said the same problem with electric technology 50, 70 years ago. Electric technology was decentralized, but people projected their mechanical literate conditioning onto the electric environment and thought it would create more centralism. So the idea that 1984, George Orwell's 1984, would be a popular meme because people projected the rearview mirror conditioning of the printing press on the electric situation. They didn't recognize the electric situation was decentralized, not centralizing, though there can be a subset of centralizing. What people don't recognize about the Android meme is that the Android meme makes it impossible for any elite to carry out its program. So you got more and more people conspiring with their little groups all over the place, but they cannot make it become a successful conspiracy because the Android meme is hyper decentralized. Hyper. So the conspiracy is a rearview mirror image. Just when everybody's well into conspiracy theories, they know all about the Syndicus because they read people who read LaRouche 10 years ago. LaRouche did it 20 years ago, and then they have their own distorted versions of the Syndicus where they go past LaRouche, they think. They don't recognize that the Syndicus have no power, and Saint Germain, I've discussed this with Ion, Saint Germain did not like the way 911 went, but what was he against so many? He couldn't stop it. He couldn't stop the mass mind effect of the 911. So that's why they're very happy we showed up, because we're on a whole other level that we can actually become a centralist frequency and not be subject to the decentralist effect of the Internet. You get that, Bert?
Yes.
Bert, rather.
Yes.
But it's like Ion is a perfected version of Roxy's grandfather. I mean, Roxy was getting these stories. She followed this stuff for decades, and then all of a sudden there was a guy who could do it even better than her grandfather, even better than Dan Winter.
The thing that attracted me was that you were linking everything.
Yeah, which you were used to. You had that kind of thinking imposed on you through your family.
Yes, but you
and
were
the point was, Ion knew that
all directions.
Ion knew that. I flunked you. When I heard you on the phone in 2011, I said, this woman is tired, going to die. I don't think we're going to be able to help her. And then 3-4 years later, I said, report to Bob, because I knew that you were primed and ready to do it.
I was just thinking about that. How
I can't be relaxed.
You had learned to relax? Is that what you just said? Yes, you had to drop.
Yes, but at the meantime, I was just taking it.
You were what?
I was taking it easy. I was studying flute and taking it easy.
Yes, you studying flute. That's right. So, is there more, Bert? Give us some other input, other questions. Did you miss last week? We didn't do McLuhan last week because you left early, right, Bert? Something happened to you last week?
I left at the normal time. Yeah, I was here. I was here last week.
Yeah, but there was a reason we didn't. Well, maybe we didn't have. No, I don't know why we didn't do some things. I thought it was due to you. So, fill in, Bert. What do you have to offer us? You've already started off. Some more stuff.
Zappa or LaRouche? I mean, anything. I can go either way. I just found. Okay. Just listening to Zappa, I really get the impression that he really may have been a parallel world person because his take and his poise. I listened to some of his interviews back in the early 70s, like 74, 73, and it was in Australia. It was one really in Australian interview where he was, they were kind of like an uptight crowd interviewing him because it was a panel discussion, and the poise and how he answered the question, that's what I thought of the connection to LaRouche, is that he, he's out into this really proper, questioning about music and just how loose he was, but he was actually not using the matching approach as you referred to. He was really just speaking what he thought was the view, and it was contrary to the audience, but they couldn't give him a counter. Because it was really cool to listen to. Just put it that way. Because what was
there's a new. Here, let me respond. There was a new interview that Roxy posted. I just happened to find it. I don't know somewhere, and listened to it yesterday. Where Zappa is taught. What's he saying? He does not rehearse. Oh yeah, he doesn't know what he's going to do when he does the concert.
Yeah.
Exactly what we say we do on Payday or on Cashflow. We never knew what we were going to do. We just would unfold. He would run the concerts that way. Do you remember? You posted, Roxy. He says it was very Dobbs Town is what he said.
Yeah.
He says,
I don't know. Maybe you can play it. It's very interesting how he talks about playing his solos. Yeah, and it's really interesting because it's what you do with your mental jazz. How...
That's right. I do the same thing.
He doesn't even think. He just goes.
Yeah.
With the moment and the environment. So, Bert, before we play that, what were you going to go into?
No, I also heard this thing that's amazing about Frank is that they did do a lot of rehearsing, but they would change what they were going to do depending on the show. And that he also customized, I heard in an interview where he customized, if they got a new band member, they had to rehearse to get the personality of the new musician into the band before they went out. To customize, to leave to leave spaces for improvisation for that particular musician with the other musicians. So there was always space allowed through the rehearsals to give a person a chance to improv during a concert. But they never knew how they would do it. They just did it.
Right, and he respected each musician that joined the band as an environment. They brought a whole technical mythic stage with them, and he would. And that's why he did the series. You can't do that on stage. You have different. He said, "I want you to hear how different bands with different personalities play the same songs, and how they're totally different based on the figure-ground relationships." So he was doing figure-ground media analysis. He's not going to present you this band in the period of the Quaaludes. You know, the early 70s, when Quaaludes was a popular drug. He said, I'm going to get these musicians. We're going to play off the audience's bias caused by Quaaludes. So he runs through the whole history of music based on the drugs that the crowds were into over, 30 years. And he was looking at the technical ground. And remember, drugs were the technology for people back then. Still are. They're the drug that people want matches the pitch and timbre of the technology landscape. McLuhan said it simply. He said the 60s went to the 70s. He said, we went from glow to glum. And so that was from marijuana and LSD glowing to glum, Quaaludes and cocaine, or depressants, Quaaludes. So the figure ground. So here's, did you want to say anything else, Bert, about your discoveries?
Just one thing. This is what was unique for me, is just to listen to Zappa. And I was reading LaRouche. It's almost like that Zappa sometimes intertwines from the LaRouche crowd. He's in the McLuhan, but he sort of, just listening to him, he's very LaRouche-like in his approach in these interviews. It's not always warm and fuzzy. I listened to one where he was very combative with this young lady. He was nice, but when she gave him a counter question, he kind of, bit her a little bit, or not really bit at her, but just had her question. So he's very unique, almost like a doctor.
Yes.
He's a doctor.
Yes. Yeah, like Gary Null.
Yes.
He's the same sign as Gary Null, and I would say there's similar characteristics between Gary Null and Zappa, the way they are. They're perfectionists, and also very teacherly-like, and they have a superiority complex almost. They have your best interest in mind, but they're not going to let you get away with laziness. And, I was just reading something. They said that his band members had to perform brilliantly, but he never really complimented them. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the article on Sunrise and Zappa, they're both the same. They didn't compliment their musicians if they did well. They didn't praise them. They were supposed to just do that, given, not praiseworthy. But,
just like that interview
Zappa is...
where he... a general.
Yes, a general. But he's a general with a sense of humor. See, the thing about Zappa is that he has a good sense of the absurd. So I guess they all did, but Zappa didn't mind performing it to the extreme. I mean, he didn't mind looking totally ridiculous. That's where he was like me. He had the most Bob gene in him. He didn't mind being ridiculed. He kind of liked it, right?
Yes.
So that's a Dobbs style characteristic. So let's play Frank. And this thing we're playing has 1.5 million views.
Wow.
That's a lot. If this is what this is, it says 1.3 million views underneath. Let's see. Which reminds me, Ian says we're still unfolding. The meaning of the angel diagram is still unfolding. What happens over the next 2 years determines how things are going to be interpreted. Like this, it's ongoing. So here's Zappa. Nobody knew him back then, but a lot of young people might be listening to him now. For whatever reason, they're attracted to him. So how do I just make sure I've got everything clicked properly?
Who are your guitar heroes?
Well, today my favorite is Alan Holdsworth. But when I first started playing, I like Johnny Guitar Watson, Clarence Gatemouth Brown, and Guitar Slim. And the style that I play right now probably is more linearly derived from what Guitar Slim used to do than anything else.
Do you consider yourself a great guitarist?
Well, I'm specialized. What I do on the guitar has very little to do with what other people do on the guitar. Most of the other guitar solos that you hear performed on stage have been practiced over and over and over again. They go out there and they play the same one every night, and it's really just spotless. My theory is this: I have a basic mechanical knowledge of the operation of the instrument, and I got an imagination. And when the time comes up in the song to play a solo, It's me against the laws of nature. I don't know what I'm going to play. I don't know what I'm going to do. I know roughly how long I have to do it, and it's a game where you have a piece of time and you get to decorate it. And depending on how intuitive the rhythm section is, it's backing you up. You can do things that are literally impossible to imagine sitting here, but you can see them performed before your very eyes in a live performance situation. I don't like any of the guitar solos that have ever been released on a record, and I think that the real fun of playing the guitar is doing it live, not freezing it and saving it on a piece of plastic someplace or putting it on a video.
So every night then is spontaneous for you, huh?
Absolutely.
It keeps it fun?
Well, think of it the other way. You know, what if you had to play exactly the same notes every night? Isn't that like punching a clock?
Mm-hmm.
Well, who needs that crap?
Again, I mean, I'll make a statement that I made to one of your earlier statements. It's so refreshing to hear somebody talk like that.
Well, most people won't take that chance, because I'll take the chance to go out there and make a mistake. I will take that chance for the privilege of doing something unique, one time only, live in front of an audience, because that's one of the reasons why the audience has come to see the concerts over and over again for the last 20 years, because they know that the concert, even though you may be playing songs off the record, is a unique situation. It's only going to happen that one time. There are going to be jokes happening on stage that relate to that particular audience, and there are going to be solos played during that show that will never happen again, have never happened before, will never happen again. So it's something special just for the people who bought the tickets to that show. And it's probably one of the reasons why the bootlegs of these concerts have done so well over the last couple of decades. There's hundreds of the things out, and that must be one of the reasons why people buy them, although you shouldn't buy them.
Yeah, he didn't like people buying the bootleg. So what I get from that is he didn't like his records. He sold records, but he hated listening to anything that had been frozen. And those are awesome records and fantastic things. But that's what I would do. I'd get all the bootlegs. The idea was to get as much Frank as possible, because it was not repeated. Every concert would be awesome. I've got a huge collection of bootleg vinyl. But the other thing is, I go further than Frank. Frank says he doesn't mind making mistakes. I make so many incredible mistakes that nobody of any reasonable, sane, sophisticated state of mind will hang around here. Who gets on and has Ion talk about when Bob's going to be on the cover of Time magazine? Frank didn't go that far. He didn't brag about himself and have someone say shit about what he was going to do. Right? I pushed the envelope. I didn't realize that. I act more silly than Frank ever dreamed of.
Yes, but for me, it's very interesting what he says, that there is another way of creation when you improvise than when you are like thinking and writing things down. He says there is no other way of composing what you compose when you are live and improvising. I mean, I suppose he was even surprised when he was recorded and he would listen to what he played.
Yeah.
Because maybe you don't even remember and you say, wow, that's great. That phrase or that.
I used to do that after, I do a show with Mike, and then 2 weeks later do another show. So the day before the next show, I'd hear what I said 2 weeks before, and I would be amazed at what I said. I had no memory of it, and I'd be impressed. He would run. We even have footage of it. One of the DVDs he sells. The concert we watched him in the Pier 1 or Pier 21 or something in New York City. And as soon as the concert's over, he basically runs to the recording vehicle and starts re-listening to the concert right there as soon as it's over. He even doesn't even care if people are for standing ovation. He runs and he wants to hear what happened. So, see, this isn't exaggerated. He does plan. He gets hours of rehearsal, months of rehearsal. What is he improvising? See, that's maybe a level of ESP or non-physical, because he's got a sound list, he's got a song list. They know what they're going to play. Maybe he doesn't tell them ahead of time, but they get the list just before they go on stage. And there is a list. I've seen the list. They're there. So that's planned. What is he saying that he doesn't know? You know what I mean? That's not planned. He's conducting the place. They got to do it right. Carol's just saying it's just the solos that are different. Okay, the solos. All right. So it's just the solos are improvised. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I should have realized
that's what he was referring to in the space. I took that as that's the reference that he mentions, leave the spaces, because it's just like any type of high-level training, like a musician or even being a martial artist. It's just that you do a lot of rehearsing and practice, where thought is eliminated. And then when Frank gets these guys so highly tuned up and trained that when they get in the concert, they just experiment within the spaces within the music. And that's what I took when he said he leaves the space. When you listen to his music, it is different. It is different, but it's the spaces where you may hear his, like, especially that's amazing to listen.
Wait a minute, are you saying, Bert? Are you saying it's different from the same song you heard him do somewhere else? Is that what's different?
Yeah.
What's different when you say it's different?
Yes. Well,
within his own work, it's different.
Within his own work, like I think I've heard like 3 or 4 different versions of Chunga's Revenge. I think. Yeah, it's just different. It's different. You hear maybe the harmony or something that sounds the same, but there's always something in the front that's different.
A different guitar. You use a different guitar.
Yeah.
So what the heck was I on? Okay, so I thought he was talking about it unplanned, but the solos are unplanned. But he does repeat the song. I mean, there's a basic pattern to the song that he plays the guitar on that's repeated every song. It just doesn't sound the same, or maybe done at a different pace or something. I don't know where this improvisation is happening. I don't know where that, what... No, the solos, Carol. Maybe he doesn't do that many solos. I mean, he does a solo a song, but there's the parts. So it's just a solo. Okay, it's just those little parts, a little 2-minute stretch. It's total anarchy. He doesn't know what he's doing. Okay.
But he will also have these hand signs and tell the musicians, okay, when I do this, you do the lowest note, or when I do this, you do whatever movement, and when I do this. So there were also spaces.
When he... Look, I would not get away. If I was interviewing that, these people don't know anything. Right, but listen, that woman didn't have a sufficient knowledge. If he had said that to me, I'd say, no, Frank, you're tactile. You got the left hemisphere planned, the hand signals and the script and how songs were rehearsed, and then you got the right hemisphere making. And you're neither the maker, the improviser, nor the repeated rehearse guy. You're in the interval. And that's what he's doing. He's playing off one against the other. But when you ask him a question, he's forced to take one point of view. But he's always both points of view. And McLuhan was doing the same thing.
Yes.
McLuhan emphasized the medium was the message, and then later he said, I forgot. Yeah, the content is just as important. Sorry, forget everything I wrote for 15 years. I forgot to mention the other half.
He's not going to home for long.
Yeah.
Like they wrote. That's not going to hold.
Yes. Yeah. We could tell you, Bob, but it would distort. I was asking him about predicting the economy, what's happening right now with the rates and everything collapsing. He says, and I couldn't play it because he goes into confidential stuff, but basically the idea was, he says, Bob, we say something, like we'll say, if Janet Yellen does this, or Janet Yellen will do this, we are heard, it influences the people who are listening to do their investments or whatever, and it'll alter what she's saying. So Ian says that there's such an important nodule in the mix of interpretation of what's going on and what's going to be done next that they cannot be part of it. They stay out of it, at least publicly, because they're so influential. And it's not just the influence Well, it's not that they're telling Janet Yellen what to do, but just if they say anything, that causes waves, even though, you don't know who heard it. So Ion, he goes into this change. You can't actually, you can't make the future go the way you want, is what Ion says. And Carolyn comes in with the other side. Yes, you can. I would not disagree with Carolyn. It's like when are you guys still there? Yeah, you're there. When I was asked a question in a talk in 1984, the guy said, well, you left out all this other stuff about advertising, blah, blah. Why don't you mention that? I said, well, I would have, but I only got one mouth. So my mouth is only going to say one side. But everything I didn't say, I include that. And that's what politicians do. They run on a platform, but they don't tell you that they include the opposite platform because contingencies might make them do the opposite. But they have to go around being a fascist of the mouth and just take one point of view. See, that's why it's not anything that's in univocal or a clear prose statement is not the facts. The facts are a page of Finning's Wake where everything's being said all at the same time. So you're making yourself stupid by reading, univocal prose. Or you're falling asleep. You're dreaming. Yeah, there's the dream. You're dreaming.
Dreaming the dreams are dreams.
Yes. So, what else is there to say about this at this point? I appreciate you going back and getting stuff on Mozart and that, and showing the repeat method, and that's what LaRouche does. He defines the method of the true revolutionary.
Yes, because
but
actually
it's not predictable.
Going back to Mozart was actually to then come back and talk about these similarities between Zappa and Sun Ra, and how they created these orchestras and were trying to push the boundaries not only of his musicians but of their audiences and what they will
whenever
is possible
right.
And
Roxy, whenever I talk to apparently black people, I've done this for decades. And they didn't know about Zappa. I would tell them it was about Sun Ra. He was like Sun Ra. They might get that. They'd understand. Oh, I know Sun Ra. Yeah, so Zappa's like that. I said, yeah. So I've said it for decades, and I never had a chance to say it publicly. So then we see this article written by this guy that someone sent us, and there it is. And I'm happy to have it out there. But it was one thing that I never got a chance to say. I didn't have time to say the Zappa Sun Ra connection. I'm glad someone wrote it, but I'm just saying that was obvious to me for decades.
What's the name of the article, Bob? Sun Ra, Frank?
It's written by something called it's an academic article on the Vermont Review. I can post it or send it to you. It's not perfectly written. It seems to be maybe written by a foreign person who doesn't have their English down exactly. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of little mistakes in the diction or spelling, even though it looks like an academic journal. But he gets the main points about the similarity. Very similar. Exactly. It's like
he says the connection
Sun Ra was a gay Zappa. Sun Ra was a gay Zappa. Because, apparently he was homosexual, and he didn't let his musicians date women. So I don't know if they had to be homosexual, maybe not, but he, under the guise that they had to be disciplined, that's what this guy's article says, that they couldn't get into alcohol, women, or anything. They had to be very disciplined, live like monks, and apparently they would sneak off and meet with women and that without him knowing, or did he pretend he didn't know? Frank wouldn't mingle with the musicians because he might get busted. But Frank was pro-heterosexual activity, and he wouldn't. He probably would recommend his band members to get fucked rather than doing marijuana. So he wasn't as Puritan as Sun Ra about that. And he often did songs about the funny sexual experiences that his band members had. Like the Mud Shark song, or the one about Steve Vai's brush. The woman with the brush or something. I can't remember the details. On Freak Out, and he describes the purpose of each song. One of them says, this song is a blatant body commercial, B-O-D-Y, to get groupies. That's how it's defined in this teenage album. He calls it a body commercial. That's like advertisement for the chemical body. Let me just see if anybody wants to have some input. You must have some other stuff to say, Bert.
Yeah. I'm going to the kitchen to get something to drink. I just want to say.
Okay.
I'll be back.
Yes.
So you won't.
Yes, Bob.
Yeah, you won't hear this. Roxy won't hear this part.
Okay.
Trina says.
It's funny you're saying about.
We can do this.
Go ahead.
Hey, Bert, let me say it. Trina says, beat the Zappa out of you. I love how Bob brings in other stories in the story. That's a good statement. Jim says, so I think there was a slick kinetic transportation. I guess that's about the Filipino. Jim, I'm thinking the beginning of all this was, and I don't know what. That doesn't lead anywhere. Somebody named Yellow Brick Road is making comments. Cool Keys says, hi guys, thanks for this wonderful show. I've listened to many archive shows but haven't figured out how to listen live. All you do is phone, I guess he means, you just click on, what is it, Bert? You go to the front page and you click on Studio A. It says Live TV, Studio A, and then you go over to the right and click the second part, right, Carol? Studio A, and then there they go. Yeah, so you go to Studio A. He says either way, the past, present moment is as in. Go ahead.
They had to be on Studio A in order to type that in, so it's kind of confusing what they're mentioning, because in order to get on the chat line, you have to be in Studio A and listening. So maybe they're a little confused. Maybe they think this is recorded.
So he's already in there.
Yeah, that's how they have to have the chat in. Yes.
Oh, well, what it has here at the top, underneath the main headline, Inspiration, Insight, Enlightenment, has homepage, radio stations, shows, and schedules, Achieve TV, YouTube Live. So you put your cursor under radio stations, and it says Studio A Classic Achieve. You click on that. And then that brings up the chat line. So the guy is already on the chat line. That's your point. So he's come to the right place, but how come he can't hear it? He's got to click on the live broadcast words just above the chat line. It says live broadcast.
They say they're listening now.
Or you can phone. Oh, he's listening now. No. So did you just figure it out just now, or your complaint was hours ago? Answer that, Cool Keys. Give it a little more refinement to when did you start listening? Now. How big is your now? Now, Madeline says fascist of the mouth. She likes that. I guess I use that phrase, right? You become a fascist of the mouth. I guess a singer would be a communist of the mouth, because you're allowing people to share the same verbal statements, like a chorus.
Yes.
Okay, Cool Keys, you didn't type. You're listening now. Madeline laughs, but Cool Keys refuses to type anymore. He just won't clarify. Why? We should play the why. we could find the why, that Roxy enjoyed the why. And I could play it for you real quickly. This is what happens to all Ionettes. They get into this state of mind, screaming why. Roxy got it when she was 7 years old. Let's see, where's that? Right there. Click on that. Bringing up the sound. There it is. There's the why.
Why?
You hear Roxy, Carol? That's Roxy, Carol.
Do people even know that? Why?
Yes. That was the first thing that warmed Roxy up to my rant, was the why, because she used to scream it when she was 7 years old at the sky at midnight. It was made for Roxy. Why? So that's me yelling why. And no, you knew that was me, right, Bert?
Yes, I knew.
Carol's claiming I didn't introduce the section well enough. It's nobody would know that was me, but I think they did. So I now know that's at 6:15. I could even. That was November 28th, 1985, so 30 years ago. And as Roxy noticed, as she listened to it 3 times, she noticed I've been repeating myself from that rant ever since. I even asked Ion the same questions. Why did John Paisley get killed at the House Select Committee in 1978? Why did Frank Nugent do this? Why did Michael Hand do that? Why was it in August 1980? Then we'd add a new thing. Why is that in JW's birthday month? That would be a new twist. But same issues are said. No imagination. In terms of not creating anything, I'm the perfect artist. I stay true to the post-creativity world. I've been running the same riffs for years, like Frank. Frank repeated a lot of his stuff, right? Able to make it different each time.
James, after, I don't know the time, but you also talk about Frank and yeah.
Well, let's. What I'll do is I'll just move it through little bits. I don't want to do it too much, but let's just see what I find. Okay, so we set that. See what little fragments. It goes on for. Well, this is only 40 minutes. So, this whole rant, it floats around Larry McDonald, who was JW's congressman. Larry McDonald was the guy who killed in the KAL-003, end of August 1983, that led to Larry Flint's Rebel magazine, and everything. And part of Hand Signals for the Blind is caused by the Larry McDonald incident, and that was JW's area. I'm pretty sure we're very close to it, DeKalb County. So, and Larry McDonald was this crazy, far right-wing guy, according to Mae Brussel, all the different bad people he hung out with. So here we are talking about Larry McDonald. All right, let's go what happens next. You heard 1982, June 82, 7 people died. Now we're talking in September 83. Now you move it forward.
It was we exposed. Did you know that the RCMP heard our interview with the EIR on October 17th, and 2 weeks later busted the Sikhs in Vancouver? And we were told that they heard our interview and it gave them the direction on how to bust them. They let them go, so I think they just called them in and told them, look, you're being exposed in Toronto, do some little diversionary activities, okay? Go back home to Vancouver. But anyways, we put a little pressure, right? Not me, the Executive Intelligence Review did. But at least CKLN put it on the air, which is to their credit, don't you think? Don't you think it's great that the CKLN puts this stuff out? Their manager, the station manager, told me that we'll put this stuff out until we get a bomb threat.
The station manager is Adam Vaughn, who later fires Dave Neufeld, and now Adam Vaughn is in power at Ottawa with the Prime Minister. I'm talking about the station manager's little club.
Okay. And we've been doing this for over a year. We haven't got a bomb threat yet. So obviously, not many people are listening to CKLN. But it's a fantastic station because I think people listen to CKLN, but when International Connection's on, if you phone them, you phone somebody who, when he picks up the phone, you can hear International Connection in the background, he'll change his name. He'll deny that that's his phone. That's true. Yeah, that's right. It's silly information, and which will be developed at our next gig at Larry's Hideaway, why this information is silly. But like I said, it takes volumes to explain why he did. What did he say? I know her, so it doesn't count. How about somebody? There's one person back there I don't know. He's in black. One of those men in black right there behind Andy. What do you say? He says the same thing. He's right. He said the same thing as her. There are 40 people in the world. Hamburgers? Yeah. And 5 of them are hamburgers. Okay. Now, in a situation where the word makes the market, and we're all together in a little global membrane, I've gone over this 100 times.
100 times. I've said we're in the word makes the market at least once every payday or cash flow, right? I've said that 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
The word makes the market. Same old shit.
And will be mentioned on our series on McLaren, coming up on CKLN. We'll explain why there's no time and space. And Walter Wriston was on Wall Street Week last Friday night, and he said there's no time and space. He's talking like a psychic. He's talking like an Aquarian. He's the top banker responsible for all the devastating changes in the United States banking system over the last 15 years. He's saying there's no time and space. So Dr. Beater doesn't seem so far out because he worked with those guys. He set up the Export-Import Bank in the 1960s. So Manfred Roeder gets a letter from Paraguay saying Uncle is dead, died off the beaches of Brazil. Or died on the beaches? Yeah, off the beaches. Right, in the water. So off the beaches of Brazil, he died. Okay, so the authorities notice this letter goes to Manfred Roeder, who's in jail for blowing up people all through the early 80s, and he's reading and distributing literature based on the propaganda function of Werner Naumann, who was assigned to be Joseph Goebbels' successor in 1945. Werner Naumann sets up all these newspapers, and General Edwin Walker phones one of his newspapers on November 23rd, 1963, and says Lee Harvey Oswald was a communist. Okay? And Werner Naumann is, meanwhile, setting up people like Hoffman and the man I just mentioned. Remember him? It began with Manfred Roeder. That's right. So Manfred Roeder, this triggers off the German police to investigate why Manfred Roeder is getting a letter from Paraguay talking about Uncle. They know who Uncle is. So what it means is that we've got to make Joseph Mengele appear dead because Mae Brussel has connected the Fritz Kramer Ernst Zundel Institute of Historical Review in Torrance, California, who were notorious anti-Semites, apparently, which Dr. Beater predicted that there would be an increase in Hitler kind of propaganda against the Jewish faction, which is unfortunately a dupe of the K-Czar Bolshevik faction that run the Pentagon, apparently. But Manfred Roeder and Zundel are distributing this literature saying, and Keekster too, and Beater said that these people would get a lot of airplay, and they did, right? Right after Mengele. You notice when Zundel was in trial in Toronto, right in the middle of his time, Weasel pulls out a little document saying, hey, Joseph Mengele was in Canada in 1962. 1 year before the Kennedy assassination. He was making a deal. I mean, he was part of the Kennedy assassination, so... And the Torba document says Major Bloomfield in Montreal was part of the assassination. So maybe that was part of the deal. Mengele could get into Canada if he cooperated with the assassination. But this is all speculation. This is speculation, right? I mean, this tape might be broadcast. The German police then contact Mengele's family, and they decide to say, yes, he died. So Mrs. Boser says, we got her bones, here they are. She wouldn't let them open the coffin because she was weeping. She was weeping so much, she'd consider it an insult. Meanwhile, Fritz Kramer and an Associated Press photographer are flying quickly to Zurich to give money to Mengelé's attorney, which made Russell smoked out because several people were following him and told May who he was, Rick Steinecker. This is all happening in 85. Reagan just got in for his second term. And they're bringing out the Mengelé's hoax. And why are they exposing? Why is Mengelé's being exposed? And why are the Jewish conspiracy being exposed at the same time? Why? Is it a retrieval of the 40s because we've exhausted all cultural content? Pretty abstract. You know, my associate Tom Rich likes to get into the abstract stuff on the show, but I try to avoid it because I'm a technician. But secretly I think about those abstract things. I can speculate with the best of them. I mean, I had David E. Wooster on the show today, and he's talking about the formula that was triggered off on September 5th, 1969, the psychic formula that allowed all former hierarchical systems to control people had secretly been switched. And that Pope and Reagan don't know this, and they're running around, going to take, if you look at my chart, the part of the Second Coming, they're coming in, and they're going to create the disease and offer the cure. Can I? Oh, geez. So, I'm not...
So then the band, I finished and the band started playing. So that was Bob's instant pattern recognition. I was improvising based on the same formulaic knowledge. In between the knowledge, there was improvisation.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Why?
I love that. We should go back and play that. But Cool Key, okay, Cool Key says 10 minutes ago, not very big, ha-ha. Oh, so he figured out. It seems to take a bit for typed text to reach you, but I'm responding. Okay. Madeline says, Bob only checks the chat line occasionally when there's a convenient break in the conversation, or when he says something clever and wants to see if anyone responds. Meanwhile, they ignore what Madeline says, and they start saying, hey, Madeline, how you doing? Are you coming over? Are you going to visit me? Now, Liz comes in and says, just tuning in. This recording of Bob is amazing. Who is Liz? Do we know Liz? Well, I'm glad you like it, Liz. Just go to my timeline.
Alyssa.
Go to November 28th, 19... It's what?
Who? Alyssa, the musician. Alyssa.
No. She spelled E-L-I-Z-A. This is L-I-S... What?
Okay.
This is L-I-S-A.
I just took it as Alyssa. Okay. No.
So, Liz, you probably don't have my timeline. I should post my timeline so people can have it. And then you go to the timeline and listen to November 28th, 1985, and you'll hear the whole 45-minute rant, which is an amazing rant and summarizes a lot of issues. Oh, geez, I did that wrong. I'll post it right now for you, Liz. It's funny, they type up, they go, just tuning in, this recording of Bob is amazing, and they spell it small b, capital O, small b. They take the time to present the icon of Bob properly in their typing. Isn't that nice?
Yes.
So there's the timeline. So another, you know what you got to do? Let's go to the second rant. This does have, there is stuff about Zappa. This does relate to Zappa. But you go to the next rant where we perform at Larry's Hideaway. Let's just see how that begins. Hey, Bert, the reason we're hearing this and why I played it for Roxy is one of the band members that's playing here in the background and in the previous one got introduced to me through Facebook a few days ago and sparked a big reunion. A guy named Tom Walsh. And it turned out he'd become a fanatic about Mae Brussel in the interim, since we last saw each other 30 years ago. I have to come on with a simple fascist mouth and equal this intensity. You realize the challenge? Listen to these guys. They're no slouches, man. They're blowing. And I got to come on and create. I just realized I got to go over to Tom Wolfe's Facebook page on Monday and post this. He can hear himself 30 years later. But he's blowing there, isn't he? Aren't you impressed with the band, Roxy?
Yes.
They're just roaring along there, aren't they?
Yeah, they're cool.
And that's Jack Tassie on bass. Yeah, Jack Tassie on bass. He's the guy who kind of stayed in touch with me. He told Tom, he probably just bumped into Tom, and he said, "Hey, Bob's available. He's talking to the Guff. The Guff, we can't die anymore, Tom."
And then you come and what? Where? How?
Yes, what? Yeah, what?
And all the degrees of separation.
6 degrees.
Or what?
Yes. Okay, we want to see where do I come in?
What? Senator McCarthy became...
Finally.
Ah,
Me.
I see, Fritz. You mean you didn't...
I'll try to get the very
work
beginning.
first in Korea. Ah, they... unfolded rather accurately. Well...
The band has stopped.
Now we'd
I'm
like
coming up on stage.
Bob Marshall of the International Collection, CKLN. Take it, Bob.
Let's invoke the gods. Hey, turn them down just a bit. I don't need them. I'm a beautiful baby. Just really low. Yeah, see. No, I don't. They don't have to see me. It's a hearing process. You can't hear? That's okay? All right. Let's invoke the gods. Mae Brussel, Sherman Skolnick, Executive Intelligence Review, and Dr. Beater. You guys are lucky tonight. We have a special guest. That guest is in the audience, and we're going to have an exclusive interview like we have on CKLN's International Connection. Fritz Kramer is in the audience. So, Fritz Kramer is arriving through that area right now. Here he comes. Fritz Kramer, moving through. Over this way, Fritz, near the mic. Thank you, Fritz. Great to be here, Bob. I'd like to explain this Kurt Waldheim issue that just arrived on our local media. Well, Fritz, that's going to take a long time. I've got 12 and a half minutes. Okay, Bob, where do you begin? Well, was Kurt with you at Obramagao in 1944? Yeah, me and Henry Kissinger had him working for us, working hard. How come nobody knew at that point that Kurt would be the United Nations Secretary General? Well, we knew, but of course nobody else can know, because the world ended in 1945. It's just a script that has to be unfolded rather accurately. Well, Fritz, how about the space shuttle? Everybody's wondering if you did it. Did you blow it up? You know I did, Bob. But again, Bob, we need some historical background to explain how I could get into the position to blow the space shuttle up and then have my colleague, Kurt Waldheim, exposed a month later. Well, why would that happen? Well, that's a good question, Fritz. I tried to explain on my show on the radio why this could happen. I used Dr. Beater, I used Sherman Skolnick, Mae Brussel, but this is an opportunity to ask you the questions to have you here tonight. So, how did it happen? Well, it began in 1944, as we said. We've got Kissinger and the Rockefellers to move through John McCloy at the Chase Manhattan Bank and have him release us from the Nuremberg trials and the docket at Dachau. That's where I was. I was prisoner number 33. We released them. They released us. The joint process. It looked like he was releasing us, but we were releasing him to allow us to be released. Okay, now the point is, we had to get a war going, so along came Korea. So we get John Singlaub. John Singlaub, Mr. Kramer. I talk about him on my show all the time. Yes, Bob, he's running the Contras through his Soldier of Fortune magazine. You mean John was way back then? Oh, yeah, Mr. Singlaub worked for us in Korea. The Reverend Moon connection. The Reverend Moon connection, and this is true. This is really true, isn't it, Fritz? Yes, Bob, we have to do this under the guise of comedy, but it's the only way we can get away with it. This late date of the latter end times. Okay, so, Fritz, with Singlaub charging up the Korean airline tragedy, you're moving way ahead, Bob. That's 1983. We're still in 1952, the Korean War. Okay, well, let's move it along. Yes. Yes. Excuse me. No interaction? Okay. There you... Come on. It's all right? Okay. So, 1954, Joe McCarthy. Did you have him on your wing? Yes, Joe McCarthy. Why didn't he enable you guys to move into a more obvious role? Well, television did that. You know, Mr. McClone explained that television cannot have political issues on it. I see, Fritz. You mean you didn't foresee the effects of television when you had the McCarthy program? Oh, no, we didn't understand that. So we had to bring in Elvis. Yep, brought him in, distracted everybody for 3 or 4 years, and then we had Nixon running for president. And you know Nixon, he helped release us in 1945. Okay, so he lost the election. Well, Kennedy had his boys rig the computers. It could be done at that point, 1960. Not very well known on the local level, but computers can be rigged in certain key election districts. Oh, so Dickie was supposed to be in at that point. Oh, yeah. So you are admitting you killed John Kennedy. I certainly am, Bob, and proud of it. I didn't directly pull the trigger about it. We did the heavy mind control program through Stanford Research and Alan Dulles, about $34 million of LSD tablets. This was all very useful later. We had to blitz them out, man. The whole generation really identified with this Mr. Space Capsule, John Kennedy. So we had to put him on acid. Okay, you did that. Time's running out, Fritz. You've got to get back to work. You got to get that Star Wars program moving over to Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is where you originally hoped to start back in '66 when Reagan was governor. That's right, Bob. We had to blow up the space shuttle in Florida so we could move the operation to Vandenberg. And as you notice, we blew up the Rainbow Coalition. You know, Jesse Jackson is a political campaign image of ethnic minorities. Well, did you notice who was on the space shuttle? You had a Japanese Buddhist. You had a black man. You had 2 minority representatives of the female sex, and one of them Jewish. And we're still mad at the Jews. They've done a lot to us. And then they pull off this Kurt Waldheim thing this week. This is the reason why I had to go public. I had to go public here at Larry's Hideaway. The only times... we have an interruption. Yet. What? This is funny. Come on, ask me a question. I mean, What? What? Senator McCarthy became not useful, right? He died in '57. No, come on, eh? I mean, we don't use those labels in the highest levels of intelligence work. I mean, that's for domestic and international consumption, of course. But anyways, the thing is, if you follow John Singlaub, he got mad in 1978. And if you're following Dr. Beater, there was a battle of the Harvest Moon. Now, Fritz, is it true that the moon base was blown up in '77? Well, that's right. No, it isn't. See, Dr. Beater is disinformation. We put that up to confuse people to think, well, it's the year 2022 or something. You know, they don't know what time it is. They think space shuttles and that are up.
You hear that, 2022, Carolyn? Ion said 2022 at the beginning recordings a couple hours ago.
There's no time.
Yeah, you said 20. Did I say that?
Yeah.
I go, there's no time, but 2022. Well, we never say 2022. We say 2020, but I say right. It's going to be said, guys. You got that, Bert? You see the symmetry here?
Yeah.
Improvise symmetry.
Always.
So what do you think of that? My interview with Fritz Kramer. Pretty good interview.
Yeah.
Have we had enough of that? What do you think there, Roxy? Have you had enough? Should we get back to the sensible topic, Frank Zappa? Look at this. Oh, look at Liz.
We're always on the topic.
Liz is typing a whole...
Because...
What?
You are the topic, actually.
Yes. Now, Liz says Bert is right. It's me, Alyssa. Well, you didn't mean Alyssa. You meant Eliza, right, Bert?
No, Alyssa. I meant Alyssa.
The musician. Oh, I didn't know that. I had forgotten about Alyssa. She didn't show up last week. We immediately forget them. If you're not here every week, Alyssa, we soon forget you. So I didn't even, you're a good friend, but I didn't even recognize your name. Well, that's funny, isn't it? So Alyssa is here, and then Eliza isn't here. So we'll soon forget about Eliza and remember Alyssa because she's here. So she says, you already posted your timeline, Bob. You are living ahead of yourself. Sorry. Oh, okay. I already did post it. Yeah, I post it every week. Then she goes, Bob, I rant. Bob rant. Oh, I guess she's just appreciating what's happening here. Yes, you're hearing a Bob rant. She goes, whoa, who's this Tom Russell? Is Killer good? Maybe I'm saying Tom Walsh, W-A-L-S-H. No, Mae Russell? I don't know who Tom Russell refers to. Tom Rich? That's Nelson Thal. Is Killer good? Well, no, okay. She means Tom Walsh. She's talking about a musician. Yes, Tom Walsh is good. I'll introduce you to him and you can be his friend and go to his website, his Facebook page. Then Liz says, nice edits, Bob. Well, yes, you mean I'm just accidentally ionically controlled. I didn't make any edits. I just moved it. And then 94 says, ventriloquist Dobbs. Then Liz goes, ha, 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 with a smiley. And that's as far as we got. But we have to get the Zappa papers out. We've got to get back onto the Zappa particular. I'm waiting for Roxy to finish her thesis. Do you understand her thesis, Bert?
Yes, well...
Her platonic...
because of the text you were talking about the comparison between Frank and Zappa, Frank and Sonra, and how you were always saying Sonra was like Frank Zappa. And I like Sonra because he's like the connection to the parallel worlds that Ion says is what they're trying to do now.
Oh, I didn't want to say that. Listen to this. No, but wait. I got to respond to that. With you, I've said this before, but listen to this. On We're Only for the Money, your theory is Zappa must be connected to parallel worlds. What he says, one of the songs on We're Only for the Money is Discorporate, leave your body and come with me. He says it, discorporate. He's telling the teenage listeners to go to a parallel world. That's Zappa. I wonder if I could find that song. Because, look at this. Because I couldn't, you blocked the phone, Carolyn? It didn't work. Corbin's calling. Now, I can't pick it up because then they can't hear me, but here's Corbin calling. Let's hope he goes into the answer machine and then we can play his message.
And I was thinking...
No, wouldn't it go through...
Once the other worlds are connected, then the synarchy has no power anymore. How are they going to control all the worlds?
They're not. Remember, I infiltrated the synarchy, set it up to get to this position where I took over 6 years ago. Remember, there's no Illuminati since 2008. Right? The Android meme reflection of it canceled itself out with that press conference about September 19th with George Bush, Hank Paulson, Bernanke, and the head of the Securities and Exchange, I think his name was Cox. Those four guys, the Rye, Eloy, Two, and Lofty of the Illuminati, gave up the ghost that day. They said, we don't know what to do. We're going to have to go communist. We're going to have to bail everybody out. No, we're no longer capitalists. So that's the no longer private ownership of money, which had been retrieved by Prince Charles from 1981 to this period, 2008. And so no more Illuminati. Because we showed up. That was 9 months before I showed up. We are the new Illuminati. No more Queen of the Night, which is written in Rape of Lalocque. No, Essay on Man, one of the Alexander Pope poems ends with the Queen of the Night, the Queen of Chaos, and Frank Marshall quotes that all the time. Queen of the Night was a technical term within the Freemasonic mythology of the 1700s. You'll see Alexander Pope use it. Thank you for reminding me of her.
Because my throat is not so good, but I was like going to go like, oh. But I can't.
You mean opera? Are you trying to do opera?
Yeah, that's the solo of the Queen of the Night. It's very famous.
Oh, you know it. You know the song.
Yes, but I can sing it because my throat is so...
Yes, I know it's embarrassing for you. Who can sing and have to do a lousy version. What'd you say, Bert?
We're just making fun.
I didn't hear it either,
them. It's finally overcome situation after centuries. After Marie Antoinette decapitation and.
It's Pope's Dunciad that the Queen of the Night is in. I just Googled it and it says on Amazon they're selling a study. It's called Pope's Dunciad and the Queen of the Night. And that is the section that Marshall's always quoting, the Queen of the Night section. Now look at this. It says a study in emotional Jacobitism. Jacobism or Jacobitism is the thing that LaRouche is saying that the Martinets, the Saint Martin were organized as Jacobins, radicals. And here it is, right in the Pope study. Wow, isn't that nice? Nice synchronizing there.
Yes.
Emotional Jacobinism.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were we doing? I was going to lead you guys somewheres.
It's about the Zappa papers you said earlier. You mentioned earlier that you want to get back to the Zappa papers, so do you have an article?
I'm going to go get the articles. But now, Liz says, I usually name myself Alyssa.
Video.
What? You fix your phone. You're doing the, whatever you call it, the intercom. Yeah, see, you're a lot closer this way.
You can play some Mozart. We are so happy that this is finally over. Calm.
Liz says, I usually name myself Alyssa, but Liz is my nickname. Yo all, happy to be back at Payday. But I was going to go get something, right, Bert? I was going to go get...
yes.
What could it have been?
Zappa articles.
No, that was before. Just a second ago, I was going to go on the internet. No, I was going to get something to play or sound or some information. What could that be? See, what was the last thing we were just saying before? We're talking about the banking, Saint Martin. Yeah, the Jacobinism.
Emotional Jacobinism.
No, that's what I came to. But that interrupted me. I was on my way to something else. You were... what was I... Why did I come up with Jacobinism? I typed in something. Searched it.
Queen of the Night. Queen of the Night brought it up. Queen of the Night.
Oh, yeah.
Queen of the Night.
Queen of the Night. And that is Alexander Pope. And then it was the thought just before Pope. Somebody before Pope. well, you bring up the Queen of the Night. That would be Lady Di. You realize when Rai returned to Essence in January 1967, you had the afterimage of ISIS lingering in the global theater, inside the global membrane. So you had women as an image, as a species, dominating from the 70s, 80s, 90s, culminating in the death of Lady Di. That was the end of ISIS. Just like Kennedy, globally recognized guy, he represents Rai, he goes down in 63. Then you have this globalized icon of ISIS, the feminine, going down in August 97. Now look, here's Legend shows up. Legend. He says, where's Ion? We haven't heard from Legend in months. And he goes, where's Ion? Legend, there are new rules. Unless you're here every day, every fucking week, listening to Carolyn's medical show, Ginny's show on Wednesday, My What Youth, you don't get access to Ion. And Ion's going to be back any week now, maybe next week. There are certain reasons why he wasn't here this week. And only those who've been regular attendance, Legend, you blew it. You're going to have to start attending. You're going to have to wait till Ion goes away again, and then fucking attend when Ion's not here for 6 months before you get access to Ion. You've really blown it, Legend. And you have nothing else in your life. Your mother doesn't work. Your mother's a dead fucking ghost. What's your mother saying? Is your mother saying anything reasonably? No, your brother won't channel your mother. You got no mother. You only have us, Legend, and you come back every 6 months as if you can drop in. No more dropping in. Who gets the first question?
We are the only mothers.
When Ion shows up. That's right. We're the only mothers. When Ion comes, who gets the first question based on regular attendance? Bert. Bert gets the first fucking attention thing. He beats out Roxy because he's here longer than Roxy. Roxy had a job. She had to go somewhere. So she lost a few hours that way. But Bert, I think, has the most hours of regular attendance.
But Eliza has start before Bert. I usually start
that's right.
So don't say.
I just wanted to see what you'd say. I said that to see how devoted you are. So we will go check the photo finish and see who goes first. What? What'd she say? She moaning? Is she crying?
You're working.
What'd she say?
But that's over.
Yeah, actually, Bert, you haven't got a fucking prayer. You're not making videos with me. Bert, I don't know why I named you. I apologize, Roxy. You get the first question, but I don't want to appear to be favoritism. But who else, Bert? Who's been a regular attender? Eliza's been here a lot, but she hasn't been saying much. Madeline's been here, but she doesn't even phone in. Who else has been? Who do you know, Bert, that's been a regular attender the last 6 months?
Only Roxana.
No, there's been a couple.
Last week everybody
Corbin used to be a pretty good regular. Corbin used to be a regular attender.
Last week, Bowie and
Kim. Everybody. Kim is a regular attender.
Kim, Susanna.
Kim, she was regular. Susanna's pretty good. They definitely get to ask questions. They may not be the first person, but they get in there. But these other people we haven't heard from, I'm sorry. It's like no more free poker, as Ion says. And Legend says, I am an original. Ion loves me. Look at him pleading. He's pleading to have access to Ion. Oh, well, enough of this nonsense. Let's get back to Frank and the issues. Liz says, the mothers to celebrate. Yo, Liz says, Madeline. I'm a little lazy, Roxy. I haven't gotten myself organized to go get the papers, so maybe you could talk, or Bert. Bert, I want you to bring up some things that have been on your mind that you heard.
Why don't you play a Sun Ra thing of the things I send you? Like from the Space is the Place. The whole introduction of the film is super ionic.
Oh, okay, I will grab that. That's Sun Ra, Deep Purple, not that one.
No, that was like linking them to you, like
I have it, yes.
Deep Purple song.
Yeah, here it is. I got it. Bingo! Only Bob would notice this. You see, he said isotope transportation. Only Bob knows this.
Yes.
There's a Zappa scholar named Simon Prentice. He lives in England. And he got to find out what Zappa's lyrics meant because he had to translate them into Japanese. He also translates Yoko Ono's work. So he works for Zappa and Yoko Ono. I met with him in 2008 in London, as well as meeting with Ben Watson. And I went to Simon's home, and he showed me some of the transcripts and letters and correspondence with Frank. And there is this song about 1970, one of the albums of 1970 called Toads of the Short Forest. And so Simon has to translate that into Japanese, so he needed to know something particular about it. So he asked Frank, what's it about? And Frank says, isotopes. He said, isotopes. And Simon showed me this. He hadn't told anybody else. He kept it pretty close. Maybe he was going to write a book, with what he was learning from Frank. But he told me, and of course we know that isotope is a key word in the sugar formula, H197, an isotope, and we stabilize the isotopes. And then, so we have isotope, I've mentioned before, as part of Frank Zappa's world. And here's something that says it, isotope transportation. Excellent find there, Roxy. Did you notice that? The isotope, is that what drew your attention to this? Is she demuted? We got to go find where is it?
Bob, I remember you giving an explanation of ion a while ago, maybe 2 years ago, that you said ion was an isotope and that we would have to be isotopes.
Okay, just remember. Yes, Roxy got knocked off. So, Roxy, did you notice the isotope point?
The whole rant is super ionic. Everything he's saying, the frequency is different here.
Right.
And
no time.
How
time is
there is no time. How teleportation
is going to take place. But the key thing is isotope, Roxy. Other people say some of those things approximately, but they don't say isotope. They don't say isotope transportation. You got to realize, and this is something that Frank said. Oh, that's what I was going to look for, Bert.
Yeah.
I was going to get that lyric, discorporate that song. That's what I had to look up the lyrics, find out which song it was. Let's bring on Corbin. Corbin, what song is Discorporate, Drift With Me? You probably know that, Corbin. What song is that?
I said, flies all green and buzzing in his dust.
Yeah. Oh, that's Torture Never Stops. Come on. What is Discorporate? What song is that? We're only for the money, Corbin.
You have been dodging me. Why have you been dodging?
Corbin we finally demute him after 6 months and he can't focus. Stay focused, Corbin. Come on. The question is, what song is the lyrics, Come Discorporate With Me, Shifting and Drifting, to Donner and Blixen? What song is that? And we're only for the money.
Drifting and blissing and Donner, you will be absolutely free, only if you want to be. You will be absolutely free, only if you... I saw Dweezil Man on December 12th, and this is a question I've been trying to ask you for at least 2 months, and you said the last time you'd seen Gail that she looked kind of grandmotherly. Did she pass? Because he looked so bomb, dude. I mean, I live in the Miracle Mile section of L.A., and he was at the Saban Theater, and this is a very kind of about a 2,000-seater venue, and he had all of Zappa's fucking guitars, the SG-63s that Joe Walsh Well, Joe Walsh gave Jimmy Page 1959 Les Paul, which you see in all the Led Zeppelin movies. And he also gave Zappa an SG, an SG with a Bigsby whammy bar.
Can you fix your vocals there? You're really low, Corbin. Fix your speaker, your mouth,
Can you hear
something.
No. Did you hear what I just said?
No. You got to repeat it.
Okay, I saw Dweezil Zappa on December 12th, okay?
Good.
And I said that Joe Walsh had given Jimmy Page, and Paul McCartney actually makes a spoof of Rock Show or something. He says, anyway, Joe Walsh gave Jimmy Page in 1959 a Les Paul. He also gave Frank Zappa an SG Gibson guitar with a Bigsby whammy bar. And so when I saw Dweezil, he looked so bomb, dude. Now, I'm asking you, has Gail passed away? You said the last time that you had seen her that she looked grandmotherly. What's the scoop here, Bobby?
When I saw Gail on October 6th and 7th, 2014, in the San Francisco area. What? Am I not loud enough?
Say it again. No, my phone's crapping out. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, so I saw Gail. I met with her October 6th and 7th, 2014, at the Marin Valley Film Festival, where they showed the new documentary on Frank.
Yeah.
Now, we got an echo here. What's that? Is that somebody's? Anyway, I can't worry about that. So,
because I'm not.
Yeah, so Gail had a hat on. She looked, old and dumpy, but had a nice, pretty pleasant face. But she had this cap on.
You wouldn't bang her. You wouldn't bang her, is what you're saying.
Shut up. No. Here's the point. When she died exactly a year later, on October 7th, she was announced she died of cancer. Then I realized that's what the hat she had on, the kind of hat that people wear to cover up their chemotherapy, losing hair.
Okay, so now dig this. David Bowie, Harry Nilsson passed away exactly 22 years as of yesterday at the age of 52, which is approximately where I'm at, okay? Harry Nilsson, John Lennon's friend, David Bowie, and now they're making a big deal to do March 31st at Carnegie Hall, which is obviously, that will be Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, David Grohl, and several other musicians as yet to be proclaimed. Probably Bob and me and Carolyn. We'll do Mother Mary and Joseph.
A cappella.
Mother Mary and Joseph.
We'll do a cappella.
I am the zombie wolf. I'm the wild. How about a zombie wolf?
Zombie wolf.
Roxy, let me interrupt here, please. Let me interrupt here, please. I've been called back for an audition for America's Got Talent, okay?
Oh. Bullshit. I just want to say, just a minute, Corbin. I want to welcome Alyssa here, another musician. This is the musicians portion of the show, the union. Welcome aboard, Alyssa. We haven't heard from you in a long time. Long time.
So
long. You'd like to say before we go?
It's been so long. I've been listening to the archives, and it's been really great. And I've just been having to work on Saturday nights, and I'm just, bummed, but I'm glad I'm off right now.
Right. Are you listening to the Zappa archive? You're listening to it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do you like our Zappa exegesis? Are you learning?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's just cool.
Good.
I like the part where it's, especially last week, where it kind of dipped into, like, how you were, like, you pulled up the CKN thing, like, at the moment of the time, and it was like, that was, I liked how it was kind of, like, highlighting your sort of, I don't know what's going on, so.
My compositional abilities. My instant improvisatory, no solo, soloing without any guideline, and the order surfaces, yes.
But yeah, but
it sounds jazz being spoken.
Yeah, mental jazz.
Yes. How about classical composition? It's symmetrically so organized in retrospect. It's more like, well-tempered scale stuff.
And the new Castle stuff. The new Castle stuff.
Oh,
is really cool.
Isn't that marvelous?
Yes, yeah.
Did you? Right. I bet you missed probably you got to hear what I broadcast an hour ago. Did you know I was shot at just down the street here, and the bullet went through me, and I am pointing this out. They've been sniping at me, and then Chad came up with a brilliant interpretation. What? What, you forgot to take the stuff off the oven?
Shot at.
Oh, you didn't hear that part. I was shot at. And the bullet went right through me, but Chad came up with the explanation. Because I live ahead of myself, a few beats ahead of myself, they were shooting at the after image. That's why they missed me. Ooh. And then we find the isotope of what? I'm reading the definition of what?
Yeah, I'm reading the definition too. Each of two or more forms of the same element that contain equal numbers of protons but different numbers of neutrons in their nuclei, and hence differ in relative atomic mass but non-chemical properties. A radioactive form of an element.
Did you look it up before I said it?
Yeah, I looked it up when the recording or whatever, what you were playing.
Yeah.
It just kind of caught my ear. So yeah. But yes, I was wondering.
You read the first part again. It's about two-ness. It sounds like a description of somebody with more than one self. Like read the first few words again.
Each of two or more forms of the same element that contain equal numbers of protons but different. Yeah, each of two or more forms of the same element.
That would explain. That would be the chemical version of the 12 JWs. That would explain. Ein goes on about the isotope. It's somehow a reductionist, materialist, physicist conception of the multiple selves we are. And that would be isotope transportation. Quite a discovery. As usual, we never know what we're going to discover, but we do.
And topos is the Greek for place.
Topos, isn't that what they call the Tibetan monks or something? Topos is a Nepalese. Anyways, you're saying it is a what? A topo.
It just says 1913 isotope coined by F. Sadi from iso equal plus the Greek topos place because the isotopes occupy the same place.
Okay, topos. Right. That's sort of like something being in two places at once, or is that a variation of the electron? It can be in two places at once. Isotope. So, but you get this amazing point, is that we have a link between Zappa and Sun Ra, only because I took the time to introduce myself to Simon Prentice in London, and he invited me to his home, and he showed me the transcript. And I'm the only one who knows it pretty well, that isotope is the explanation for the phrase